Every vibe coder that's ever tried to prototype a UI knows the pain. You describe what you want, you get back some functional code, but it ends up being a steamy pile of Then you spend countless hours trying your hardest to prompt something that looks halfway decent into existence. And if you are lucky, you don't end up erasing something that you really liked on accident in the process. In other words, you're vibe coding on hard mode. I have tested nearly every autopilot AI no-code vibe code tool out there, from V0 to Lovable to Replit and everything in between. I've gone deep into product design books, trying to figure out a way to abstract some insights out of there and use it to prompt the system. I've even tried just uploading screenshots directly to O1 Pro and seeing if it's able to use that as inspiration to make me something unique. And nothing came even close to sniffing what you can do with this new tool. Because most people approach vibe coding the wrong way. They try to find one tool that will do it all. The front-end code, the back-end code, the design, the deployment, everything. But if you've ever worked in a real-life SaaS company or startup, then you know. A true full-stack developer that also designs professional software is about as realistic as a unicorn farting rainbows. The future of vibe coding is figuring out how to weave different tools together to get a single output that is better than any of them could have done on their own. And thanks to this Y Combinator-backed UX UI tool, the future is now. If you don't know me, my name is Sean. I've got a portfolio of different companies that do low 8 figures per year, some techie, some not techie whatsoever. And on this channel, I like to show you how I'm applying AI in those businesses. So in this video, we are going to be breaking down my favorite tool of the year so far, Polymet AI. And we're going to specifically look at the 3 features that separate it from the crowd. So I hate when tutorials take too long to get to the topic. Kind of like one of those recipe blogs where, you have to scroll down and hear the entire life story of how their grandma taught them to cook in the kitchen before you can finally get to the ingredient list. I don't want to do that to you guys. So let's just get right into it. So this app has 2 main functional areas. You've got pages and you've got components. And the best way to think about this is that when you build software, you always want to try to build reusable code. So it's a constant give and take of trying to solve the problem that's right in front of you in a concrete way, and then abstracting that solution out so that you can apply it to other situations. So a component is like a reusable section of code, maybe like a loading icon. And instead of recoding that loading icon every time you want to show the user that something is loading, you build it into a component that you can reuse again and again and again. Then when we get to having a page, well, a page is basically where we're just going to structure all of the different components that we have built. Pretty simple, right? It's kind of like a individual Legos versus a complete creation that you built out of those Legos. And so let's say we are building an app like Instagram. We could look at our home feed here, right? And everything that we see inside of this page is basically a component. So this top piece up here where we have, the different people that we're following, this section would be a component. All of the individual icons with the name below them would also be components. This feed that we have here is a component. Inside of that feed, we have a section that is the profile and the name, when it was posted, a media picker, maybe it's an image sometimes, maybe it's a video sometimes, and then we have our description, we have these little options to share and do all of that. This is a component, right? Maybe Instagram under the hood calls it a post. So you have a post component that can be constructed of a lot of different things. And so when Instagram goes to render your newsfeed when you power up the app, they're going to receive an API request from their own backend server that has a big list of potential posts that they think you would like to see. And each of those posts is going to get rendered based on the component and where certain data is supposed to be plugged into that component. And so when you build your app, that's how you want to think of it. You want to think of, hey, I have this page, and on that page are a bunch of reusable components that I've built that can be used in different ways. Now for a vibe coder, this is critical because when you are using a large language model to code things, especially in a tool like Cursor, it will often redo work. It does not always have the full context of every single thing that you have built. And so it will end up doing code multiple times that solves the same problem, which results in a lot of things that don't work the way you would think that they would work. Then later on, when it tries to solve a problem, then you end up with a really slow, really bloated app. And then when you go to make future requests of that language model, again, in a tool like Cursor, it will often go and update the wrong pieces of the code. If I was to tell it, hey, go update the profile page and do this, that, and that, it might end up going to the wrong part of the code to make the change, because there's technically multiple pieces of the code that do that thing, right? And so we want to really be conscious of components and how they should fit into our app. But the problem is with common solutions like V0, Replit, Lovable, things like that, even just Vibin in Cursor or Windsurf, it doesn't always build modular components that way. So like I mentioned earlier, there are three features that really make this tool, Polymet, stand out. One of those features is in this component section that we are going to look at. So let's start with a really simple component. We can take that example from earlier with our loading bar. And so all we need to do is give the system our prompt and then choose how many variations we want it to make. So maybe we say, hey, we just want 1. Maybe we want 8 because we want a lot of different ideas. I'm going to pick 2. And so we can come in here and say, I want to make a loading bar that moves across its container like a slinky / inchworm. It starts on the left side of the container and moves its way across the right. Enter. And so now once we have this output, there's a few different things that we can do, right? So we see our first slinky loading bar right here, and then we have this inchworm style loading bar right here, okay? And so there's a few things that we can do. Number one is we can choose to edit, meaning we want to tell the system what updates we want it to make to this specific component. And then number two, if we wanted to, we could remix this, meaning we want to combine aspects of two different components together. Not going to do that one right now because I think the editing is going to be the most relevant. And sometimes it's the case, it one-shots a solution that you like. And so if you want to just go in and get the code, you can click code, and you are going to have functional code that actually does this thing, which is pretty awesome. But let's show off this edit feature. So as we see, I came down here and I clicked edit. And let's say, I think it's funny that it decided to add a little eyeball on there, but let's say we didn't actually want that. So we could say, I want you to remove the eyeball. Also, I want this to slide more smoothly, a little less inchwormy. Also, I want it to slide across the bottom of a container as if it's the bottom outline of a container, right? I want it to have that effect where it looks like it's kind of like on the bottom of a divider, right? You'll see what I'm talking about here in a second if it gets it right. And boom, here we go. That's like almost exactly what I was thinking. This one looks a little jankier, but you could take something like this and pass it into Claude Thinking and say like, hey, help me fix that specific piece of it where the animation isn't exactly how we want it, but pretty awesome. Now let's see how the same exact thing works if we had some inspiration. So if you've seen my other videos on vibe coding and specifically UI design in vibe coding, you know this tool that I love called Mobbin. What it does is it goes out there and it pulls screens, UI elements, different workflows from actual production level applications. And so I love to get inspiration from this. If I'm thinking about how I want to build like a profile page, for example, I would come through here and look at this. If I say, hey, I need to show off a chart. And so I pulled out one of these, which is from Twitch. I was just looking through the cards and I thought this one looked kind of cool, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come through and I'm going to download the screen. And then I'm going to go back to Polymet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to put in a new prompt. But before I do that, I'm going to upload that file that I just downloaded. So I'm going to go into the downloads on my computer. I'm going to upload that. We can see it's in there. You can click it for a preview. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to give it another prompt. We're going to say, build me a similar view here for draggable cards with a toggle switch. And then I'm going to tell it how to behave. So behavior. On toggle on, the card gives a subtle positive vibration animation to show it's now on. On toggle off, the background becomes slightly grayed out. Keep the same colors as the reference. Screenshot. Boom, and here we go. We got our output, and as we go and look at it, looks pretty nice, right? We can toggle on and off. It has a lot of the functionality we asked for. It does that little vibration. And I did run some other variations of the same thing where we can see it grays out fully. And so you can kind of come through here, and then again, iterative process where you see like what you like about certain ones. I personally like this one a little better, but it doesn't do the vibration that I wanted it to do. And so this is where you can start remixing components together and so on. So this ability is a game changer for two reasons. Number one, gone are the days of just sending a prompt off to Cursor or whatever tool you're using and praying that it inserts the type of thing you asked for without destroying something else that you built. And number two, Polymet actually builds really nice, really beautiful designs better than any of those tools, and it does it predictably. Because all of their engineering, it's not going into being able to build and deploy a production-ready app. It's putting all of that LLM processing power into building you a design. So honestly, it's more like an AI Figma and less like a V0, Replit, or Lovable. And it really excels at what it does. But for all of that glory, this feature is only the tip of the iceberg. So let's go look at the rest. So like I mentioned earlier, we're not just building components, right? You don't want to just build components. You need to connect things together and then iterate on those designs. Kind of like a painter, right? They go through and they outline their work, right? They do their broad strokes, and then they come in and they put in the detail, kind of like what we're doing. And so inside of Polymet, we do that in our pages. So this is where we're going to start building something out that like really looks like an end product. So now we're inside of our page layouts, and let's say we want to like very rapidly develop an app design for some app concept that we have. And let's say we did the thing that we should be doing, which is we really planned out the app ahead of time. And so in this case, it's going to be a fitness app where someone can upload their own workouts, but then get an AI coach to actually coach them through their progress. So let's say for our MVP, we have a few things in mind, right? We want to have a dashboard. We want to have a workout screen. We want to have an AI coach where they can kind of chat back and forth, kind of like a ChatGPT style interface. And then we want to have a basic like profile screen profile settings. And so let's really quickly, we will hop back over to Mobbin. And say for the dashboard, I really want it to be a graph, basically. I want my dashboard to kind of look something like this. And I happen to actually like this one, which is for some crypto app called Phantom that I saw. And so I'm going to come through and I'm going to download this one, just like we did for before. And then we're going to prompt Polymet to actually start building this for us. Okay. And so we're going to come through, we're going to tell it, I'm building the fitness app for iOS and Android. At the bottom, navigation is 4 options: dashboard, workouts, AI trainer, profile settings. I want you to build me screen 1, the dashboard, which is a quantitative graph similar to the one in the screenshot, which I have uploaded. Some functionality it should have. Being able to change the graph to look at different metrics. Maybe I want to look at weight loss, fat loss, VO2 max increases, total volume that I've lifted, right? Different things I might want to look at. It should have a section below the graph that tells the user what the personal trainer has to say that day about their progress, right? Maybe we have a back-end process that runs once a day, and it gives the user like feedback that a trainer might say about what they did yesterday or the day before or whatever. And so make sure you give dummy data under the hood that demonstrates the graph functionality well. The reason I put this here is the first time I ran this, it like didn't get, the person wasn't making a lot of progress. And so I told it like I want to see bigger numbers so we can actually see what the graph looks like. And that's it. So then we go through and we tell it to generate, and then it's going to go out and it's going to build it for us. And so here we go. Pretty good output for a first shot. Again, if you've ever tried to like build an app and actually done this, you probably would have gotten something that looked wild and not really like this. Okay. And so we can come through just like we asked it, right? These are all connected together. We want to look at their progress on the body fat, VO2 max increases, volume, how their strength's improving. And then every time we click on one of these, the AI trainer is kind of updating the feedback and giving it some extra feedback. So pretty cool stuff. Now, let's say we wanted to like really quickly build a new profile section, right? We wanted to come in this profile and we want it to actually look like something. So again, we go back into our Mobbin. We find that screenshot that we had. I picked out this one again. I noticed a lot of these came from Twitch. I guess I like Twitch's design, even though I don't even have the app on my phone. So I can download the screen, hop back in, come up here, click new. I'm gonna just put that image in. Okay, and we can preview to make sure we're uploading the correct one. And then we can say, build me out a profile page that looks like the one in the screenshot, but is for a fitness app. Okay, we'll let this go and come back in 1 second. And so there we go, just finished. And now when I come over here and I look at this, again, really nice design straight out of the gate that is modified for fitness, right? But again, it follows that general design aesthetic that we had. Now, this feature alone, I would pay for over all of those other tools, because you can take something as true inspiration and have Polymet really build you something fresh that is still your own. And it does that without those annoyances and frustrations of a lot of those other tools that end up just letting you down. But that's not even really the feature I wanted to show you either. So now we're going to get into what I believe is the best feature of this tool, and it's what struck me most when I first started using it. Yes, we are talking about the Humble Edit. This feature right here is by far the biggest differentiator between Polymet and other tools, bar none. Because it allows us to select detailed pieces of the UI and make changes to that specific context without touching anything else. So we can iterate on specific pieces of the app in a really contained way. So I'm going to show you two ways that you can do this. Inside of our dashboard, let's say we want to be able to, like, I like this chart, but let's say we wanted to be able to also have it be a bar chart, right? Maybe the user wants to look at it like a bar chart. So we can come through, and all we need to do is select our edit. And then as we hover over, we'll see that it starts, right, accessing different pieces of this container. So let's say that I just selected this, and now it's going to allow me to leave feedback, right? It's going to allow me to leave a change. And so what I'm going to say is give the user the option to toggle this to be a bar chart. Okay, so something really basic. I'm going to save the instruction, and now I could go through and I could add even more instructions, right? So just for purposes of showing you, I could say, let's remove VO2 max, remove VO2 max. Okay, let's give it a few instructions, and then I'm going to go up here. I'm going to just click run revision, and this is going to go out and it is going to make all of those changes. Now here we are, a few seconds later, it removed what we asked it to remove, right? But now if I was to come through here and I toggle on the bar chart, boom, now we have the toggleable bar chart. So if you vibe coded with any other competing tool, you know that this is damn near impossible to do, and you almost always break something else that you had that you liked. And so I wouldn't be surprised if those tools go out and start putting features like this inside. And so this is awesome because all of the engineering work that's going on under the hood allows them to pass this really granular, detailed context through to the system and then filter it through their, in my opinion, best-in-class design prompting and output some amazing shit. So second way that we could do this, which again is awesome and is in the spirit of all this component modularity that I've talked about, is that we can go back over here, for example, to our profile. And let's say on this profile screen, remember that component we made earlier that like you would click on it and then we had our little toggles and all of that? Well, we spent all that time making it, so it's kind of useless unless we use it. And so we can go back up into our system right here, but you'll notice this orange option next to it that says components. And so if we click on that, we can go through the components that we've made and we can say that we want to reference this, right? So if I click add to prompt, it's now going to reference this component that I built. And so just for speed here, let's say we wanted to add an extra little piece into this page. And so we can come in here now and we can say, add a card under settings that when clicked triggers this component call it preferences. Right, so we're telling the system, hey, I want you to add this new piece that's gonna be at the very bottom under settings, and whenever somebody clicks on it, I want you to trigger that component that you made. So here we go, just finished. Now if we were to scroll on down, we see we have this preferences section, and when we click on that, our modular component pops up and has all of the functionality that it had before. Pretty fucking cool. And so again, if you really vibe code and you enjoy doing it, this is such a big improvement over standard workflows that it is insane. Now, the great part about any of these pages or these components is that you can take the code when you're done and pump it into anything you want. So if you come over here to code, everything that we have built so far is in here. You can come in and you can take specific pieces out, or you can just export the entire thing, and we can feed this into whatever it is. So we can feed it into ChatGPT, we could feed it into Claude, into Cursor, we could have it rewritten into React Native, or we can do, whatever else we want to do. And so this is the exact design process that I'm using now to build deployable mobile apps that actually work. I use my prompts for architecting the project first and understanding what I want to build as an MVP. I pump those considerations into Polymet to build out what each of those screens and interactions is going to look like. And then I feed it into a reasoning LLM that has a really big context window. I give it all of this stuff and I say, go build it out based on these specifications. And so in that process, we can convert all of the code, for example, if you wanted to something like React Native with Expo, and it's off to the races. And by the way, if you're interested in seeing what that 5-prompt framework that I have is to build apps, and so really quick, if you're interested in seeing that 5-step framework that I have for prompting apps that are actually good, quickly and predictably, just leave me a comment and I will record a video on it. So hopefully you see the light. If you're someone that's dealt with the pain of vibe designing before, this tool should be a game changer for you. Because vibe coding is cool, but vibe coding right, well, that's even cooler. I'm all for giving into the vibes and letting AI build things that you never could have built before on your own. I think it's really cool. But the best way to actually do that is to use different specialized tools that solve specific problems the best. And for me, Polymet is becoming an integral part of that process. So I enjoyed filming this video. I hope you found something useful in it. Follow me for more videos like this. I'm in the beginning stages of my channel, and every follow actually does help. And so that's it for this video. I will see you in the next one.